came back and he's like, there's still some leaks. So I went back to the seller and I'm like, we can't close because there's gas leaks. The next day was closing. So I said, we're not closing. There's just no way on God's green earth are we closing.
Ooh.
So we had to push back closing and they were so mad. And it ended up, there were 6 gas leaks in that house.
My name is Kevin McIntosh, and this is The Closing Table, where we talk to experts about their experience in real estate all across the country. Let's go. Welcome back. This is The Closing Table, and I am your host, Kevin C. McIntosh. Joining us on this episode, excited to share her knowledge within her market, real estate professional, Sherine Moghazi. How you doing, Sherine?
I'm good. How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing just fine. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation to be here and taking time out of your very busy schedule to be here as a guest on The Closing Table. We like to acknowledge that. So,
well, thank you for inviting me.
Yes. So we want to learn about real estate a little bit more and specifically within your market. But before we do that, let's talk about you. I like to give my guests a little bit of time to talk about themselves. So in 60 seconds or less, if you can, tell us who you are outside of real estate.
So I am a native to the area. I grew up here all my life. I sort of wandered around, moved between Raleigh, Cairo, San Francisco, Atlanta, Dubai, came back to Raleigh with my daughters and started into real estate because to me it was an intuitive language. So I am a single mom of 3 and I believe strongly in female empowerment. So that was a big thing for my daughters to understand, especially as they've gotten older. And I love to travel the world, which is why we have this map behind us here.
Yeah.
I love to learn about different cultures. And even when I travel around the world, I like to look at real estate in those markets to understand. There's always very similar factors that push real estate. But I do love that in architecture, cultures and cuisines and, just different things about life and people.
Love that. I know before we even started, we talked about the map and the globe behind you right there, or the map of the world, I should say. I love it. I love maps. I've always been intrigued with maps and globes and things like that. Just show you different places and give you a worldwide perspective. So yeah, I was like, yeah, let's shoot that. Let's keep that background like that. I love that. But that's interesting. I love that you keep it there, mainly to just keep a log of the places that you've been. And you say you like to use those experiences to kind of take in the cultures, the architecture and the real estate industry and the different markets also. So love to hear that. Love, especially with you having an international experience. So let's get into real estate since we are talking about that anyway. Just describe your real estate business. All right. And if you are able to hit on a few key points, maybe how long you've been licensed, what you consider your niche or specialty within real estate, and any notable achievements, if you have any.
Sure. Well, to start off with, the reason why I got into real estate was because my family was investing. And as I got older, I started to sort of chime into it with them and realized how intuitive I was with real estate. I really never even thought about real estate, but it was just very intuitive for me. And then I am much more of an entrepreneur. I can't really work with for other people. I wanted to have my own business. So when I moved back from Dubai, I decided, I think I'm going to go into real estate. I want to give this a try. And so that's how I got my foot into it. Now, with that being said, I understood the principles of real estate, but a big part of it is bringing in clients. And so over time, I had to bring in clients and to understand clients. And I've been in it for 10 years. And within those 10 years, I've managed to have local clients, international clients. I started out with first-time home buyers, and over the years, that shifts with your experience. Now I'm at the point where I do work still with international buyers, but I also have investors from different parts of the world, local investors. I've done quite a bit of luxury, which I enjoy. I think that's everyone's goal, is to get a multi-million-dollar home. But I believe in the philosophy of it doesn't matter what the price range you're looking at. So whether you're looking at like a $50,000 mobile home or you're looking at a $5 million home, you as a consumer have rights and you need excellent representation.
Hmm.
And that's what I believe I've built my business on, is that I need to be there 100% for my clients. Sort of like an attorney. When you hire an attorney to represent you, you want that attorney to look out for your best interest. I believe
Right.
that's the biggest principle in real estate as well. And I think a lot of people don't really see that, but is an extremely important point when you're dealing in real estate transactions.
Nice, nice. That's beautiful. That's beautiful for you to come to that, realization when it comes to overall, real estate and doing business with real estate. It's a lot of the different moving parts that's involved with it. So, it's a lot of different things to consider, different perspectives to consider. And with you
Hmm.
having the experience, 10 years, congratulations. I don't want to let that just slide under,
Oh,
because
thank you.
that's longevity, that's success, that's professionalism, that speaks to your career. So I don't want to just slide over that either. But great to
Thanks.
hear that your experience and your success is paying off overall. So I don't think we got into it completely. You spoke on it briefly about your market. So let's talk about your market. We had a few
Sure.
agents on from that area, but describe your market for us and go into as much detail as possible. The exact areas that you serve specifically,
Hmm.
how you describe the culture and environment, the weather that's there, landmarks, attractions, etc. Please.
So this area consists of several counties. So you have Wake County, Orange County, Durham County, Johnston County. But really, and this is what I explain to a lot of my clients, is that we have something called the Research Triangle Park, which is modeled off Silicon Valley in California. The
Mm,
Research Triangle Park, or the RTP, is basically companies consisting of pharmaceuticals and a lot of IT. So you have IBM, Biogen, you have a lot of companies in that small condensed area. I think it's about 22 miles. Um,
mm,
and it also consists of Durham, Chapel Hill, and Raleigh. It feeds a lot of our economy, and it's on the west side. So, with that being said, there's a lot of employees that are going in, a lot of employees that are coming out. That's on the west side. Now, on the east side of these counties, which is mainly Wake and Johnston County, that's going to be, I mean, it's regular businesses. You don't have one major force feeding that side of the east side as you do RTP.
mm.
And it tends to be a little bit less expensive on the east side than it does on the west side, price per square foot. With that being said, the prices are going up all over. As a matter of fact, our prices have increased from January, February, about 10%,
Mm.
even with the hike in interest rates. Um, so with RTP on the west side, you also have the universities, which of course we have Duke University,
Right.
University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, and we have NC State. Now,
Mm-hmm,
that
mm-hmm.
also pulls in engineering, and you have liberal arts, and you have medicine alone, and medical schools, of course.
Right.
So we have a lot of things coming into this, actually quite small of an area. But we also have a lot of great attractions. So Raleigh has a great downtown. If you're a foodie, we have a wonderful scene for that. We have a great art museum. Um, we have a lot of trails, and we
Mm.
have Lake Jordan, which people love to go to Lake Jordan. And you can camp there, you can take your boat out there. So there's quite a bit of scenes. You have Duke University has beautiful gardens out there. Durham is interesting in its own, and it has its own vibe. It has a very
Okay.
urban vibe. And Durham has a wonderful downtown with a lot of great um, mom and pop restaurants. And that is actually being modernized, downtown Durham.
Mm.
Chapel Hill is a very cute college town. So you have one main street, which is Franklin Street, and it's a beautiful campus. It's red brick and a little bit more on the traditional Southern architecture, but it is a gorgeous campus. And a lot of Chapel Hill does revolve around um, UNC, where
Okay. Okay.
Raleigh is a different vibe and it's a mix. Um, you have old proper Raleigh inside the city itself, and then as you go out to the burbs, it changes as well and becomes a little bit more new construction homes, where inside is going to be historic, is very quite historic and very historic actually. Um,
Mm.
so there's a lot of elements going on. We're quite diverse
Right.
because
Right.
of the universities, the medical school, RTP. So you have a lot of people coming from all over the world that live here,
I
which is
love that.
beautiful. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
which is it's actually very nice. I like it. So growing up here, it was much smaller and it
Mm-hmm.
was less diverse. RTP was
Mm-hmm.
smaller.
Mm-hmm.
And then over time, I think what happened is a lot of the people, especially in the North, came down and they love the standard of living that we have down here, along with the weather. Because our
Right.
weather, like right now, it's November, and I think the high today is 60.
I take it. Yeah, I definitely take that. Being in Michigan, we're like 40s right now.
Oh,
50s is the
yeah,
high.
no.
So, yeah.
Actually, I'll take that weather. I will take that weather.
What? Are you serious? No, we could
Yes,
trade
yes.
today. We could trade
Because we
today.
might
That's
get
crazy.
snow or ice maybe once a year, maybe. And when we get it, see, everybody from the South understands this. When we get snow and ice down here, everything shuts down.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
don't have the
One
equipment.
inch. I know.
Yeah,
I know. And we're up here in the north in Michigan looking like, look at them. Don't know how to move in 1 inch snow. If you don't get some salt in
exactly.
the shovel. But I get it. Different regions, different weather, different capital
Expectations.
kind of, yeah, exactly. So I get it. I love how you describe that area. I want to talk about that because I've had
Okay.
different agents from the area and they all describe it different ways. The way you did it is,
Hmm.
I love it because I can recall you said Durham being more of an urban type of feel. I can
Hmm.
see maybe like the younger crowd being there. Then you
Yes.
went into Chapel Hill. The way you described Chapel Hill, I've never been there, but I imagine it the exact same way. The brick roads, the old school kind of like historic college type feel. I get that. And then Raleigh, having that historic feel also, but then also having the outside suburbs area. You put it all into my head perfectly that I can
Oh,
recall it.
good.
So now I feel like if I go there, even you mentioned Franklin Street in Chapel Hill, like I
Hmm.
feel like if I go there, I will almost be a resident and I can speak the language. So you,
Oh,
you did
you'll
a
know it.
perfect
Yeah.
job. Yeah, yeah, you
Oh,
did a
good.
perfect
Good.
job. And I love the weather being mild too. I'm actually a fan of that. If it can be kind of consistent all year, I love a little bit of snow. But what we get in Michigan is torture sometimes.
Yeah, I don't want that kind of cold. I
Yeah,
just
I know.
want like a little bit of cold. That's
Right,
all.
right. All right. So you spoke briefly on some of the pricing and
Hmm.
how it's been adjusting. Let's talk about it briefly or a little bit more if you don't mind. Talk about first and foremost. I want you to just give out as much data statistics as you can, but if you can, speak on maybe how prices have adjusted from your perspective in that area, maybe from the beginning of the year to now. We're wrapping up 2023 at this point pretty much. We're in the fourth quarter. How has prices adjusted? How has the demand adjusted? How has your service and your clients adjusted throughout the years, et cetera? Please.
So, if you don't mind, I wouldn't mind going back actually to right after COVID. So, it's probably like 2021 when the boom happened down here. And the boom
Mm,
was insane. I mean,
boom,
just to give you an
bam.
idea, we have non-refundable deposits, and our deposits were going where it used to be like maybe five, $10,000 called due diligence deposit. During that boom, our deposits went to probably anywhere from $50,000 to $200,000 cash, non-refundable. So, with that being said, you really couldn't come play in this game
Yeah.
unless you had X amount of dollars cash, which broke my heart because a lot of people, especially first home buyers, that's not realistic and that
Yeah.
wasn't really fair, but that was the way the game was played at the time.
Mhm.
And you got to see the house once because there were multiple offers on a house. So, and that was just the way it was. And you also had historical low interest rates, which was a driving
Mhm.
factor, right? 2 to 3% or 3 to 4, whatever, which again, we're not going to see that anytime soon. So that was just a whole like mess that was going on at the time. Since then, things have definitely calmed down where I think it is because, I mean, of course, that market was tilted more for sellers. It's still tilted to sellers now, but it's a little bit more of a fair playing field where buyers can still, I mean, it's more realistic for buyers and it's toned down the sellers.
Mhm.
Um, so from the beginning of the year, really, like I said, we've had 10% increase in prices. Um, our average days on market for a home right now is about 53 days. Now,
Mm.
from the asking price to the selling price, we're at anywhere from 98 to 102%. So
Whew.
they're pretty much getting what they're asking for.
Yep.
Keep in mind, though, there's still some unrealistic expectations, meaning some agents are still overpricing property from the
Mm-hmm.
remnants of the boom.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the sellers are still unrealistically living in that I still want that boom price.
Mm-hmm.
That's completely unrealistic. So you're seeing a lot of adjustments where people are saying, oh, the prices are decreasing, where they're decreasing only because they were originally overpriced.
Yeah.
But had it
Yeah.
been priced to the accurate market now, they wouldn't be decreasing.
That's a good point. That's a great point.
Right.
Yeah.
Plus, on top of it, we don't really have enough supply. So we're still under supply in our area,
Mm.
especially for resale.
Yeah.
Resale is still scarce. New construction is still out there and it's still booming and they are still selling and they are still increasing their prices.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see that. So, are you seeing any hurdles or obstacles with new development going on there? Is there, like, obviously land is limited, but is it looking like there's enough land to really develop enough properties to kind of help with the demand, or is it not even looking like that? It's looking like it'll be a problem soon.
Well, here's the problem. Inside Raleigh or Wake County, we're running out of land. Land's become very expensive because it is scarce.
Right.
So a lot of the new construction is going further out, right?
I could. Yeah.
Um,
Okay. There you go.
right. So we do have that urban sprawl that's going on. The
Mm-hmm.
problem I'm also seeing is the infrastructure. In certain areas in this area, I feel personally the infrastructure is just not catching up.
I'm
And
glad
for
you
example,
talk about this. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
the roads are just not wide enough. I mean, I'm sure the projects are in the works. It takes years to do this, but it needs to sort of catch up because if you're allowing these building permits to go out there and have these huge living um, expansions going on, then
Mm-hmm.
there has to be the infrastructure for that.
Good point.
So I think that's another thing, and public transportation. Now I will say that is a deficit that we have here is that our public transportation, if we had like an air train or some kind of monorail system or metro or so, I mean, that would relieve a lot of the pressure. Unfortunately, we don't have that.
Mm,
We are really a small city. What you
right.
consider a small city, right?
Right.
It's just very spread out.
That's interesting. The more you talk about it, the more I can make comparisons to other markets that I've talked to agents in. Pittsburgh is one that comes to mind immediately because I heard the same thing. It's not a big city. It's one of those small cities
Hmm.
that still has a lot of big city action in it. It has the traffic
Hmm.
problem. It has the infrastructure problem, and it has one of those. And I asked you about the new development because I believe they're experiencing the same thing. Some people that have lived in that market for so long real like they've come to the conclusion where they realize there were some cities nearby where nobody wanted to live. Nowadays those areas are starting to grow. They're starting to build more homes. People are buying homes there. More people who used to live here and move are actually just moving to just other surrounding areas. It sounds like that's the exact same thing that's going on in the RTP area too, and to some certain extent. So that's why I wanted to ask and see what your perspective is on that. The infrastructure, that I think that is going to speak to the growth that you're speaking on. With you living
Hmm.
and being in the Raleigh area for so long, I mean, you would know more than anybody. Like it needs wider roads, it needs more or better public transportation because it's growing. I mean, I guess in a way that's a
It
good
is.
problem to have, but no one likes to sit in traffic at the end of the day. So
Well, it is, but I mean, like for example, growing up here, there's some areas when I was a kid we never went to, and now, and literally, like if you would go, you would have to pack
exactly.
snacks because I'm like, this is a hike, like to go all the way up there. But
Right. Yeah.
now it's just become common that
Mm-hmm.
it's going to take me 30 minutes to get there, but they're bottleneck areas, and there's some areas that are expanding. For example, I think we just added the ninth international city to our airport. So like the
Okay.
airport's expanding, which is
Yep.
wonderful. But then, we still have that deficit going on in other areas of a small city, I guess is what you want to call it. And we do have a lot of attractions, which is wonderful too. But oh yeah, traffic now is insane
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
here.
See, yeah, and that's a great transition too, because I want to talk a little bit more about the new development and things like that. Because you obviously express your passion for, consuming or taking in the architecture and real estate from other cultures, which is very, very unique because not everybody has that same experience. So could you basically just share a story from a particularly challenging home sale where your knowledge of a design and structure played a critical role in turning around things for a client?
So there's actually two stories that come to mind. One was I worked with a custom builder who wanted to build this very modern home and an area south of Raleigh that's a little bit more rural, and people like a little bit more traditional homes down there,
Mm-hmm.
and or conventional. And he came to me and he's like, I want to build this. And it was a gorgeous, gorgeous, absolutely gorgeous home. And I said, okay, you got to rethink this because I really don't know if you're going to find your buyer down there, basically, because
Mm-hmm.
it's so modern. I would think it would be a little bit more towards into the city. Anyway, so he's like, no, 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 I think it's going to be wonderful. And it was actually on a little bit of a busy street. So I thought, okay, this is interesting. This is going to be a challenge. And so I said, let's put it at 1.5 million. And he thought I was
Mm.
crazy. And but I figured, you know what? You go big or you go home, right? We're either going to make this work or we're not.
Correct.
Well, it stayed on the market for a little bit. I'm not going to lie. Not very long, but we found the right buyers who absolutely loved and appreciated the home. And to make it work, to make the deal work, my builder had to add on some features to the house. For example, they added on a third car garage, and on top of it, they made it into like a man cave.
Oh
Um,
wow.
but
Oh wow.
it was very interesting putting that deal together to make it work, and it did, and they love it. And not only that, the house then became known as the modern house in that whole suburb. It became known as, oh, that's the modern house on the street. That's a beautiful house. And everybody. So he basically, what he did was he broke a barrier. He brought, modern
Mm.
architecture to that area at a price point that didn't exist.
Right,
And
right.
so, you know, we sort of, yeah, broke the barrier on that one. So that was a very interesting and fun deal to work on. The other
Definitely.
one was the structural part was I had a client once who came into town and she was relocating to the area and wanted a home, and we found a home. It was older and it was renovated and it was beautiful. It was a beautiful home. But every time I would walk into this house, now let me just tell you, Kevin, that I am a little bit I wear glasses actually. I actually wear
Okay.
glasses. So my sight isn't all there, but I can smell like a DEA dog. Okay. I can smell anything and
Uh-oh.
everything. It's just the weirdest thing. And so
Oh
every
wow.
time I walk into this house smelled like natural gas. And I would
Uh-oh.
always ask her, I'm like, do you smell anything? And she's like, no. Every time I would go in, sometimes I'd go in the morning just to test it, and I would go in at night. And she would go in and out of town, my client. And I'm like, there's just something wrong with this house. So
Mm.
we had inspections done, and the inspector was like, yeah, there's one gas leak. And so, okay, we had
What?
that fixed. The seller had it fixed, which is, common. They had it fixed and everything, brought us the receipt.
Mm-hmm.
We're like, okay, that's going to take care of it. I kept going into that house and I could still smell the gas. And I'm like, this is just
Uh-oh.
not normal. So finally I said, no, we're going to have to bring a specialist out here. And I want him to reevaluate, all the gas pipes, and they go under the house and they test it. And, and he came back and he's like, there's still some leaks. So I went back to the seller and I'm like, we can't close because there's gas leaks. And, they kept trying to avoid it. The next day was closing. And the seller and the agent came to the closing table. And that morning I walked into the house and again, it smelled like gas. And so I said, we're not closing. There's just no way on God's green earth are we closing.
Ooh wee.
And these two were just like, we need to close. And they kept pushing and pushing and pushing me. And finally, the attorney said, "No, you want a lawsuit on your hand, and that's exactly what's going to happen. Something
Woo.
happens, that woman can get murdered. She could be killed basically in that house from natural gas suffocating her, or something sets off, and the whole house blows up." So we had to push back closing, and they were so mad. And it ended up there were 6 gas leaks in that house. 6.
What? Oh my
Yeah.
God. How are they even living there? That's
They weren't.
crazy.
They were renting it out, and I guess the renters never said anything. But that is a huge structural issue, and that just goes to
Yeah,
why I always tell people get an inspection, for God's sake. You just
for
never
sure.
know. And throughout all this, my buyer never smelled the natural gas. Never. Not
That's
once.
crazy. Oh my
Yeah.
God. That's very, very dangerous. That's
Yeah.
very dangerous. Wow.
Yeah.
Thank goodness for you having that DEA dog
I know,
nose
right?
sense of smell that you had, like you said. Cause that's crazy. Like, yeah, maybe the average person wouldn't have smelled that at all, but for you
Yeah.
to smell that, be the only one, and then they identify 6 gas
6.
leaks, that is insane. That
Yeah.
is insane. Yeah, yeah. But okay, great. Great job on your part, I must say.
Thank you.
Um so your marketing strategies essentially
Hmm.
nowadays, especially in the digital space, is very, very important to incorporate things like video on social
Hmm.
media. Have you incorporated some type of marketing strategy that you use, maybe incorporated video or any type of social media content where it actually made a difference in your marketing for a project? And do you have any stories you can share about it?
I like to keep things simple. So, we do the normal platforms, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook
Mm-hmm.
mainly. There is YouTube. And yes, I do a lot of videos simply because people really need to understand what real estate is about. And I think there's a misconception on two parts. I think there's a misconception when you're purchasing or selling real estate in a lot of aspects. And I think a lot of people, they'll watch like Selling Sunset or HGTV, and they
Yeah,
just think that,
yeah,
I can become an agent. It just happens instantaneously. And that's neither. I mean, there's a lot of misconceptions in that.
yeah.
Um, but I do a lot of videos to educate the audience on what is out there and how to sell and how to purchase and what you need to look for and the ins and the outs. Um, I don't really do so much about becoming a real estate agent, simply because I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of people who ask me these questions. But I have noticed that the videos on social media platforms, locally, I get a lot of people who are like, "Oh my God, I see your videos all the time, and I love what you're doing with it." Actually, just last night, I was at a huge dinner for my mom and a lot of her friends and so forth that she grew up with, and I've known these people all my lives, and they were all like, "Wow, we love you on Facebook, on Instagram, and your videos," and I'm glad that they're seeing that. I love the fact that they're seeing that and then
Mm-hmm.
they're watching it. And I always want interesting topics to talk about, not just buying and selling and the normal stuff.
Good.
So I always want interesting stories that people can relate to. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Or even like interest rates. Like, how can you find a good interest rate right now, rather than just the typical stories that you hear from everybody else?
100%. Yeah, love that. So you got to keep people engaged. And if you are a real
Absolutely.
estate agent, a lot of people would expect you to just post the typical, hey, this house is for sale. Hey, I sold this. Hey, this house is for sale. Hey, I sold this. So you got to mix it up. You got to provide that knowledge. Not a lot of agents will say, and this is the thing that gets me. A lot of agents will say, hey, I'm here if you want to learn anything. I'm here if you want to ask any questions. Some people are too intimidated to do that. And a way to break that ice is to provide some of those questions and answers right there on
Hmm.
your social media platform. That way they don't
Right.
have to look too far, and you can elaborate on something a little bit and they'll say, okay, yeah, I like that. But what about this specific situation with that? And then that could lead into an actual call, which could lead into a lead and then go into a
Right.
client. So
Right.
great work and great
Anything can
explanation with
lead to a
that.
lead.
A
Anything can
hundred
lead to a
percent.
lead. Right.
Yeah. So as a real estate consultant yourself, you have a wide range of specialties, including working with custom builders and investment properties. Can you share a memorable experience where you collaborated with a custom builder to create a dream
Mhm.
home for a client, and how the final result basically exceeded expectations for them?
So I've worked with, actually just recently I had clients who worked with a custom builder from ground up, picking out the
Mm-hmm.
lot. And the way it works is you pick out the lot. The builder has an allowance for everything, like uh, kitchen appliances or molding or decorative things throughout the house, like a panel wall, for example. And
Right.
so, your clients basically work with a designer, and that designer helps them every step of the way um,
Mm-hmm.
of the home. Like for example, my clients put in a hidden door, a hidden
Nice.
door. that leads into a hidden
Nice.
compartment. And then, you can put whatever you want there, like a safe or,
Ooh,
whatever you want.
yeah, I like
Um,
that.
so and they wanted a cabana. They wanted a cabana in the backyard so that in the future they could put in a pool. So basically, the designer's there to hold their hand through while building the home and all the features. Our
Mm-hmm.
job is to represent them with the builder, make sure that the transaction's running smoothly, that the lending is running smoothly, the paperwork is done, everything's done legally and correctly. So, with custom builders, the key is just finding the builder that's the right fit for you, who
Mm-hmm.
understands your concept of what you want. And my clients were very lucky to find that, and they're very happy with who they're working with. Now, I just met with another builder this past week, who again wants to build a very modern home. And again, he wants to break the barrier in another area that we never thought that they would accept a modern home. But this time around, we're working with I'm working with him in the beginning, meaning let's take a look at the footprint of the home on the lot and what do the floor plan and the features. The features are very important. Your features have to stand out. There's
Right,
always more
right.
innovative features that you can add to a home rather than the features that you see in every other home. And that's
Mm-hmm.
what helps make, it's not just a design feature, it has to be a practical feature that helps people with easy living. And that's
Interesting.
what people are always looking for. So it's not just aesthetic, it's whether you have, for example, a drawer in the bathroom that can hold blow dryers, or just a laundry chute or something that makes life efficient and practical for the buyers.
I
And I think
love
that's
that.
a
I love
very
that.
important aspect.
I've never thought about that. Like just making sure the home is, practical for easy living and
Oh
convenience
yeah.
and things like that. So I want to piggyback off that and ask: are there any like common misconceptions when it comes to new construction homes or the process of it that you run into with clients? Maybe there's something that most of your clients or a significant portion of them did not know about the process, or some options that they have during the process that you often have to explain to them. Does that exist at all?
Well, I think the number one misconception when it comes to new construction is I don't need an agent. That's the number one. And
Mm,
a lot of people believe that if I don't use an agent, then that commission that would go to the broker, we get to save as a consumer. That's the biggest
interesting.
misconception, because if you don't use a broker, that commission is just being saved by the builder. So now
Right,
you have no
right, right.
representation, because the builder has their agent that represents them, and now the consumer does not have an agent that represents them. So that's the
Mm,
biggest misconception. The other thing I think, which is very important, is a lot of buyers, when they go in to buy new construction, they don't understand the process, because there's many processes when it comes to new construction. It depends on which process are you at when you enter the market. In other words, are you picking out the lot? Are you purchasing the home when it's built? Are you purchasing the home when it's half built? Because in
mm,
each stage, there's things that you can and cannot do.
mm.
And there's so many steps behind that you really require someone to sit down and hold your hand and explain that to you. Because if, for example, if the house is, let's say the lot is empty, but the builder has already submitted permits for that home, there's absolutely no structural changes that you can make. You can't add on a screen porch, you can't add on a fireplace. A lot of
Really?
times you can't add a wall, you can't do any of that because it's already been permitted at that point as is.
Mm,
Now, if it
mm.
hasn't been permitted, then we can start from whatever options the builder is offering, and then you can add
Right.
on from there. And then you understand the pricing, and every feature that's being offered as an option has a cost to it. So there's a lot of steps in new construction. I think it's more tedious than resale,
Yeah, yeah, it makes sense. It makes sense
because
because
resale,
I
you're
mean you're
getting it, as is.
as is. Exactly. Yep. I agree with that. No, that makes a lot of sense right there. That makes a lot of sense. And I asked that question because there's so many, like just purchasing a home that's already existing home on resale, that's already a complex transaction and situation. So to add building a home from scratch and then still going through that process, I imagine there's a lot of different things that people probably don't know and that you tell them for the first time within the process of new construction. So thank you for explaining that also, because I had no idea about a lot of that either. So
Yeah,
you
it's
also
yeah. Go
no,
ahead.
please, please.
No, I was just going to say that new construction's come a long way, though. It's actually a lot more simplified than what it was because,
Okay.
typically you're picking out the lot, then you pick out, the floor plan. So they give you like 4 or 5 floor plans and you pick from there, and then they'll give you a package of what the design features look like, and then it's just a matter of putting it together. Where years ago it was, let's start from the ground up, and that's a little bit more tedious in doing that.
Do you think that's necessarily a good thing in the long run? A lot of people say that older homes, the way that they were built, last a lot longer than these newer homes. Is the new way of doing things making it better necessarily? Or is it just subjective? What do you think?
I think, in my personal opinion, resale older homes
Hmm.
offer more than new construction. First of all, you're paying in a resale, you're paying less price per square foot than you would in new construction.
Makes
In
sense.
resale, you're getting more mature landscaping, where in new
Mm,
construction, it's all brand new. The
mm,
dimensions when it comes to resale are going to be different typically than new construction. For example, if you notice, garages on new construction are smaller, where
mm.
older homes like mine is from the 90s, and my garage is a two-car conventional, like old school garage.
Right,
It's
right, right.
huge, you know. um so there's pros and cons to everything. A lot
True.
of the older homes are built on crawl spaces, depending on your geographical area, which I'm a fan of crawl spacing, because I do believe that homes need to breathe. So there's that circulation that goes on throughout the home. Um, some people don't like, I have some clients who are like, absolutely, do not want an old home. I want new construction.
Hmm.
Sure, no
Yeah,
problem.
no, I get it. It's an acquired taste, to each its own.
Yeah.
Not every situation is perfect for everyone. So it's just interesting to hear about that, though. It's always interesting to hear about the process of new construction and people's taste that goes into it. But I want to speak on your role as a relocation expert, especially in the medical and pharmaceutical sectors within that triangle area. Can you tell a story of a family or individual that you did assist in your area with relocating, and talk about how your expertise in that area made the transition even smoother?
I actually had a client, this was in the IT, since we have quite a bit of IT as well.
Okay.
She came here before her fiance, and she just wanted to try out the market. And she's like, I just want to rent. I said, okay, rent is fine. Actually, rent is quite smart initially, because you get familiar with the area. So she rented a condo in downtown Raleigh, very cute area,
Hmm.
for about a year. And then she called me and she's like, I'm done. I can't live in downtown. We're going to get married. We want to start a family, and I want a house. I said, okay,
Hmm.
fine. Let's start looking for a house. So we found her this beautiful custom home. This is a custom built home, um, and a great location. And she purchased it. The basement was not finished.
Hmm.
And she had, I think, 2 children. And this client had such immaculate taste that I would say, I used to call her house was Pinterest ready, meaning
Ooh.
anytime you walk in it, it literally looked like it popped out of Pinterest. So, she
Nice.
decorated the whole home, and she calls me one day and she's like, Sherine, we're relocating. So she got married, had a child, they're living in the house. It's beautiful. They finished the basement. And I was like, you are crazy. That house is gorgeous. Why would you ever want to sell
Mm.
it? And she's like, we're relocating. I said, okay. So I went to the house, and I had seen the top 2 floors. I'd never seen the basement. And the basement was just breathtaking. It had a bar, it had everything. The landscaping was gorgeous. And
Nice.
easily, she probably made, within 3 years, 25% more on that house
Ooh.
within 3 to 4 years. Um,
Mm.
but we ended up selling it in a heartbeat. And every broker that went into that house to show it asked me who was the staging company. And I'm like, there was no stager. That's
It
how
was
the
just
people
her.
live.
Oh,
Like,
that's
that's the way she
nice.
decorated it.
Yeah.
Um, but her transactions were so smooth. And I loved working with her, and they loved, thank God. And I say this humbly, but they loved working with me because my job was to make things as smooth as possible for her
Mm-hmm.
because she
Mm-hmm.
was an executive at an IT company and she just didn't have time. And
Yeah.
it was
Yeah.
my job to make sure that everything was seamless and stressless as possible for her. So she didn't even have to worry about anything. So we had her relocated. She came into the triangle, she came out, and I happy to say it was very, very seamless for her. And I was very happy about that.
Nice, nice. Good job. Good job. Yeah, it only takes someone who is familiar with the market to know how to get things done in an efficient and smooth way. You know, that way you don't have to go back to them with too many hiccups or, oh, I'm sorry this happened, so we got to do this. Especially with you already knowing that they have a lot on their plate already in their natural life.
Yeah,
So they
they
want
did.
to hand it over to the expert to take care of the expert type of situation. So
And I
that's a
loved
beautiful
working for them.
story.
Like they were great clients. So I absolutely, it was my pleasure to do that. I loved it.
Yeah. Yes, yes. I found something on your profile when I was doing some research on you, something about loan assumptions. And I did a little research, found out it's basically when someone else assumes the loan that someone else
Hmm.
has gotten on a property or whatever. That's essentially what it is. But in your experience, are there any pros and cons to this method of home ownership? And if you can you talk about when it makes sense to get this and when it doesn't make sense to do something like this?
Well, loan assumption is more into the mortgage industry, which I can't really speak much to. But from what I
Okay,
know of it,
okay.
I've never done a transaction of loan assumption. However, loan assumption is very popular when interest rates are very high. We're not even there
Mm,
yet. When I say
okay.
high, a lot of times it was more in the double digits. Because,
Mm,
there were times when our interest rates were anywhere from 10 to 17%. Now, we
true.
haven't seen that, but
Yes,
it
not in
would
our
make sense,
lifetime
for
for the most
example,
part.
right, if someone has a mortgage in which, let's say their interest rate's 5% and we hit 10%,
Mm-hmm.
right? So wouldn't it make sense that say, I want to assume your loan at 5% because that's a 5% interest rate savings. We're not there. Do I think that we would ever get there? I think it's possible, but there's also different types of loan assumptions. I think there's FHA and VA maybe. But
Mm-hmm.
again, a mortgage lender would have to explain that a little bit better. I've
Gotcha.
never seen it in the past 10 years, but absolutely, if
Mm.
you can get an interest rate that's a lot lower than what the current market is, I would say 100% look into loan assumption. Why not?
Yeah, yeah. I can see certain reasons when it would be beneficial for both parties. Maybe someone is a little bit behind on their
Hmm.
mortgage and they just can't afford it anymore, so they decide to just, I guess forfeit it over, transfer it over to someone else, or just maybe the fact that someone's just done. They don't care about it regardless. They don't want to go through the process of buying and selling like they would. So, they just choose to do it that way. Give it to their kids or a relative or something like that.
Right, right.
Right,
Something of
right.
that nature. Right. But
I
it's
can
not
see
always
that
beneficial.
absolutely. Yes, absolutely. So, all right, thank you for explaining that and giving us some more insight in that. And thank you so
Sure.
much for pulling up a chair to the closing table, Sherine. At this point, if you have any last words and or want to tell people how to reach out to you, the floor is yours.
Thank you. So actually, you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, definitely under my name, Sherine Moghazi. Our company is Revolve Realty Group because I believe that us as brokers, we have to revolve around our client. It's not the other way around.
Mm-hmm.
You shouldn't be chasing after your broker. Your broker needs to be always there for you. And we're also affiliated with Keller Williams Preferred in Durham, North Carolina. So we're all over the place. Just or they can shout out to me here on comments. If even if they have just general comments, it's always asked. Oh, I get that all the time actually on social media where people ask, they're like, "Is my agent supposed to be doing X, Y, and Z?" And I'm like, "There's a missing link there, guys. Always ask
Yeah.
questions."
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
But
Well,
thank you
thank
very
you
much for the
again.
opportunity.
Absolutely, Sherine. Thank you so much. We appreciate you. And for our YouTube audience watching right now, do us both a favor and hit the like button, please. And thank you. Make sure you also share the content and subscribe to our channel. And if you are listening on Apple, Spotify, or any other podcast platform, please do the same. Give us a like, a 5-star rating, and subscribe for our latest content. I actually like to leave our audience with a question on the way out, Sherine. So if you don't mind, I'm going to leave this question for you, audience. This is for you. Have you ever obtained a property through a loan assumption? If so, what was your experience? If not, would you ever do it? Don't tell us now. Leave it in the comments below. Besides that, we'll talk to you next time.